What's up, everyone? In today's episode, I'm going to give you my day trading watch list for Monday morning. Now, I'm uploading this episode on Sunday evening and a little later than usual, but for an important reason. I wanted to wait for the futures markets to open so I could see the price of the S&P 500 futures. This gives me an indication of whether the market is gapping up or gapping down going into tomorrow. Now, a week ago today, we were on what some pundits on the media were saying, a brink of financial collapse of the markets. Jim Cramer said we were going to have a repeat of Black Monday, 1987. That's basically like shouting fire in a crowded movie theater. And naturally, as you would expect, the market ended up bouncing on Monday morning. As soon as he said that, I was like, the market's going to bounce. But nonetheless, inverse Cramer is performing very well right now. Nonetheless, the futures markets on Sunday night were showing a 1,500 point gap down on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And although we did rebound a little bit later into Monday morning, it did get a little bit worse before it got better. So I wanted to see what the futures market looked like before building my watch list tonight. However, I expected that they would probably be looking much rosier than last week because we had some news over the weekend that these big tariffs on all of the Chinese imports will not include the iPhone. So the iPhone will be exempt from this big price hike. They're still going to be included in one of the initial tariffs, but not the one all the way up to 125% or whatever it is. So that's good news. It's certainly good news for Apple, but it's also good news just in general because there's no doubt, and it's not just the iPhone, it's on a number of other electronics. There's no doubt that that tariff would have had a very quick effect on pricing in the US markets. Now, of course, these international companies could make a decision of, do they price the US market to exactly what the new cost is, factoring in this import tariff, or do they raise the prices on all the markets, international markets included, in order to make a little bit more money on those to help offset the fact that the US market is not going to have as good of a profit margin, but understanding that they can't just double the price of the iPhone overnight. That's going to hurt sales. So they were having to try to probably think about these difficult decisions of how they were going to navigate the absorbing and passing on these higher tariffs to customers. And now that is, the can's been kicked down the road, maybe forever, but at least for a while. So the market appreciates that. And we're now seeing the S&P futures showing a gap up. So we closed on Friday on the S&P at 534, and we're showing a resumption of about 540, our current price in the futures market of about 540. So that's good to see. Last Sunday, we were sort of in the opposite position where we had closed at 500 and we were showing way down at 490, right? So that was a big drop. But then this was when we got the news that came out that there was going to be a 90-day pause, but then it was fake news. But you know what? This is actually kind of interesting. I'm going to speculate something. Could be totally wrong. But let's just say that someone maybe thought to leak this kind of news just to test the market. Like, see, what would the market do if we did this pause, a 90-day pause? And all of a sudden the market goes crazy, huge spike. And then they say, no, we're not doing a pause. So it comes back down. But it doesn't even go all the way back down to the lows, right? You would think it would have reversed completely, but it didn't. So the market now all of a sudden is sort of holding up a little bit better. And then when the actual news comes out, well, all of a sudden we saw an even bigger move, right? So anyways, it's just kind of interesting the way that played out. But nonetheless, that's the picture on the overall market. It's still, all things considered, the market's still down 15% or so off the highs. We're still below the 200 moving average, but things are not quite as shaky as they were last weekend. So now let's take a look at I'm going to pull up my scans here. By the way, so we're going to go through the scans. I'm going to put together my watch list for Monday morning and walk you through kind of the way I'm going to approach trading on Monday. But what I'd like to do is show you two things. So one is recent episode that I just uploaded right here. Top 3 most profitable candlestick chart patterns, full training. You guys should check that out. It's a full-length episode. It's an hour long, and it's going to walk you through my top 3 most profitable candlestick chart patterns that I use in my own trading. I'll put a link to it at the end of today's weekly game plan. So check that out for sure. And then the second thing is we have a 2-week trial going on at Warrior Trading. So during this 2-week trial, you can watch over my shoulder while I'm trading. You can actually use this same software during the 2-week trial. The scanners, the charts, the news feed. You'll have real-time data, access to all of this, and you'll get access to a selection of classes from my Warrior Pro curriculum. All of that for 2 weeks. You know how much it costs? $20. It's $20. So there is no excuse not to do the 2-week trial. The only excuse is if you don't have the time to do it. But if you have the time, $20 is nothing. What you're gonna learn during these 2 weeks, you're gonna be blown away. So I would encourage you to start your 2-week trial tonight, sign your market data agreements. That way tomorrow morning, when you get logged in, your data's streaming right away. If you wait to start the trial on Monday, tomorrow, which is fine if you do, what you'll have to do is you'll have to sign your market data agreements and then log out and log back in. So if you're sitting down like right at 7 a.m. and you're wanting to get data, you've got to do your agreements first. So do it tonight, get yourself all set up, and then tomorrow morning, when I start streaming at 7 a.m., you'll have access to my stream and all of the streaming data feeds. Okay, so those are the 2 things I wanted to share with you. Now, let's go over to scanners and let's start with our after hours top gainers. I always like to start here because this gives us a picture of what was moving on Friday after the close. KIDZ. All right, so KIDZ, it's a US company. So I'm checking on the stock quote window. I see it's a US company right here. Float 5.7 million shares. You can also see it in the top of each of the charts right here, or you can see it right on the scanners right over here. So relatively low float and appears to be a somewhat recent IPO. It looks like it IPO'd, spiked up to 10, sold off. Now, because it's a recent IPO, typically these stocks actually trade like they have a much lower float than whatever the float is. And that's because a lot of insiders have a lockout period where they cannot sell shares at least for 90 days. And it's often longer than that. So it wouldn't surprise me if this actually trades a lot more thinly than even a 5.17 million share float. But what was the catalyst? Now that's the interesting thing because I don't see any clear news catalyst that was that's the cause for this move. So the lack of a news catalyst is going to be the biggest issue. It's up 34%, but that's not a lot. THTX, this one, continuing a little higher, but a 37 million share float. I think I'm probably going to leave that one alone. MB, this one, 17 million share float, $4.05. Looks like it popped up and then came back down. So that chart at this point is broken because it retraced the move. IOTR, 26 million share float, a little too high. WXM, a little on the cheaper side at $2. Now, I did obviously trade a cheaper one on Friday, MRSP, or was it MP? It doesn't matter. This was MSPR, but it was up around $3 a share. It wasn't really that cheap. BBAR, all right. So we don't have any big after hours top gainers. So we're going to close that scan and we're going to switch to our continuation scanner. So I'm going to pull up the continuation scanner and we're going to look at JNVR. All right. I did trade JNVR on Friday, but the obvious issue with this one is that it's too expensive. $50 a share. It's just too expensive. It may go higher. I did 250 share blocks on it, small size. Made like $800, but it's really not worth probably messing around with. MRM, $1.07, a little cheaper. It's been moving higher on the daily, but it's too cheap for me. I don't think I would do well on it. CDT, a little too cheap as well. TOI, 52 million share float, that's too high and it's too cheap. BDRX, too cheap. HYFM, price is okay. Has room back up to the 200 moving average. Not a clear catalyst though. High volume on Thursday, light volume on Friday, although it pushed a little higher. Without a fresh catalyst, I probably wouldn't trade it. None of these have news. This one, news is older, 26 million share float, float's too high. So we don't really have anything that I would say is worth keeping on close watch on the continuation scanner either. Now, NEOV, this one, had a pop on Friday and it dropped back down. They had news of regaining compliance. As I've said before, I'll sometimes trade that headline, but it's not the strongest headline. So that one popped and then dropped back down. Now let's take a look for just 1 second at some of the stocks that I did well on last week. So finished last week with $166,000 in profit. That was a phenomenal week. So let's look at just the month here, this month of April. And we're going to go to, let's see, filter the data. We're going to go to detailed. So let's take a look at the metrics here. 76.5% accuracy. Wow, that's fantastic. 76%, I love that. On 162 trades. Average winner's 2 minutes. Average loser's 6 minutes. Must have had one I held a little longer. I don't remember that, but okay. So average winner $1,900. Average loser $1,000. That's a 2-to-1 profit to loss ratio. Average daily gain 22,000. But let's look at some of the stocks I've done the best on. Well, that's the worst. MLGO. I do not like that stock at all. NAOV, right? BJDX. So we've already looked at both of those because BJDX was on the continuations. Oh no, let's just double check BJDX. BJDX. Okay, so, right. I guess pulled back too much. That's not going to work. So what do we have? NAOV, BJDX, JNVR, AREB. American Rebel. So AREB, this one, it needs fresh news. If it comes out with fresh news, maybe. Next one, FMTO. Oh gosh, this one that this has got obliterated. So now this is something that's interesting. It says it's a Canadian company, but in actuality, let's look at this, FMTO. Its headquarters are in Israel. So it's really an Israeli company. And we don't usually see 97, 98% drops on Israeli companies. We see that on Chinese companies frequently. And a lot of these Chinese companies are basically shell companies. They're just taking advantage of Americans, basically, just dumping stock to us and getting rich. But that kind of seems like what happened on FMTO. They just dumped everything and cashed out, and now the stock is pretty much dead. I don't think it'll be able to recover. I just don't see how it could. So that's kind of like the company just implodes as they just cash out, selling shares, and they pocket the money and the retail traders lose. It's pretty rare to see that with anything other than a Chinese company or a company that is actually like an Enron situation, which this isn't. But anyway, so FMTO, that one, although I made money on it on this squeeze here before it dropped, it's no good now. GRI, no, too cheap now. Vero, yeah, I don't love that. ELAB, PRFX. PRFX is interesting. PRTG, this one also popped up on Friday. I didn't trade this one, but this is a nice move, over 100%. Should we watch it on Monday? See, what I don't like on the daily is the double top and that big topping tail candle. It's not an attractive candle. I don't think I can trust that. OSRH. So at this point, I kind of feel like we're in between stocks. We don't really have anything that was super, super hot on Friday that I'm looking for carryover on Monday. There's a couple maybes. Yeah, maybe AREB comes out with news. WTF, this one, if it came out with news and got back above 8, that could work. There was another one. FATN, recent IPO. This one gets above 8. That could work. So we've got some maybes, but I don't have anything that I'm really dialed in on. It wouldn't surprise me to see Apple certainly trade higher. Let's see. I wonder if you've got... You could trade Apple on the 24-hour markets. I was just seeing if it's up at all, but surprisingly, it's actually not really up that much right now. Not sure why, but I would have thought it would be with that tariff news from China, but let's see, let me just get logged in. I have my Robinhood account, which I used only for the broker platform demos that I was doing last month. So I'll just log in and just double check this on Apple. So let's see, Apple. Yeah. So showing after hours down just a little bit. But all right. So yeah, nothing there. Yeah. So I think here's my game plan. Since we don't have, there's not a stock that I'm like, I'm definitely watching that. I mean, yes, KIDZ, keeping an eye on it, but there was no news, so I don't think it's going to go higher, but maybe. So KIDZ, maybe. And then we've got a couple stocks that are maybes if they have, if they get volume. But here's what I'm really thinking. I'm going to sit down tomorrow about 6:45. I'll start my broadcast at 7 a.m. for all of our members at Warrior Trading, including those of you guys who do the 2-week trial. And at that time, what are we going to be focusing on? This scanner right here, our top gainers. This is going to show us at that moment the leading percentage gainers in the entire market. And hey, we may sit down at 6:45 and see if there's already stock up 75, 80%. And if there is, and it's the leading gainer right here and it's obvious, then I'm going to be jumping on that stock, as long as the patterns look good. I'm looking for something that's obvious. Now, my precise entry is going to be based on seeing one of the chart patterns I feel good about, but this is what I'm going to look at right here, the top gainer scanner first thing tomorrow morning, and I'll be watching the small cap high day scanner and the running up scanner. So if you're curious about where I'm going to be getting in and getting out, well, I guess what you should probably do is check out this episode. Let's see, where was it? Right over here, the top, my top 3 most profitable candlestick chart patterns. So in this episode, and I'll give you the link so you can watch it. Let me just put it up on the screen. Whoops, there you go. So now you can even hear it out loud. All right, so in this episode, what I do is I break down my top 3 most profitable candlestick chart patterns. And these are patterns that I use in my trading pretty much every single day. So the number one focus is making sure I'm trading a stock that meets all 5 criteria, the 5 pillars of stock selection. And once I have a stock I like, I'll trade any pattern on it that looks good. And so there are more than a dozen different patterns that I'll trade, but there are 3 that are my most profitable. And so those are the ones that you really want to learn as a beginner. I would say if you can nail those 3 patterns, those 3 would be enough to get you started. Later, you can add additional patterns, but focus first on just getting a few down that you really understand. You understand the entry, you understand your max loss, you understand your profit target, and you know how to execute your trades to get in and get out quickly. The most important thing is that you cut your loss quickly when it's not working. What's, I suppose, equally important, that you don't sell your winners too soon. Wait for a valid exit indicator. All right, so make sure you guys check out that episode. And let me remind you, as always, trading is risky. My results aren't typical. So please manage your risk and practice in a simulator before putting real money on the line. I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.